JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, May 23rd, 325. This Friday afternoon talk really quick. It's going to be a quick rant. Not much going on here today. Obviously, the morning started with frustration, right? The POTUS coming out with tweets early in the morning. Looked like, hey, maybe we would have a decent end to the week. So a SPY could find some footing after Wednesday's 20-year yield, 20-year auction, um, a sell-off. I guess that's what you call it, but instead, coming out with things that obviously going to have impacts on markets, right? When people aren't expecting you to throw 25% tariffs on the iPhones again, that conversation because of Apple looking to build build in India. Then you have right after that was the EU, right? And I mean, supposedly there's all these deals on the table. Everything was good, things were going to work out, and all of a sudden we're going to throw a 50% tariff on the EU, which is the biggest U.S. trading partner, right? 500 a billion either way, either direction. So not good stuff. So I guess this morning when it was the first reaction was like frustration, like here we go again. We just got to the point where we've gotten some clarity around the uncertainty that's going on. I mean, we still don't know what the hard data is going to start looking like in the coming weeks. Uh, but at least we know, hey, it's not going to be 145% on China. I mean, hey, who knows? Maybe it is, but uh, now you throw that back in the mix again. Now we have more uncertainty, and you would think that hopefully this is just a tactic to get things expedited, right? At least get some kind of deal. We have the preliminary talks with the UK, some deals there too. So there's glimmers of hope, but this kind of just puts a damper on it. So if there's any, if history is any guide, we saw this, and similarly right around Friday, I wouldn't say afternoon, but I forget what time maybe it was 2 or 3 o'clock, where right ahead of the China U.S. meetings in Geneva, it was the same talk. Oh, 80% tariffs sound right on China, right? So that kind of got me cautious heading into the weekend, not to add calls into Monday. That turned out to be a mistake. I'm not saying we're gonna have a similar situation here, but if you if you use the same formula and you say, oh, 50%, so 50% probably means 20%, right? So, well, I think it's the analogy, right? The person who cried wolf, right? The first and second time that you uh, come and come to help them. The third time you kind of dismiss it, right? So we'll see how this all plays out. Hopefully, it's just again more rhetoric and less action on that side, and we can kind of move on from there. But unfortunately, again, it brings up that uncertainty card, and when you have uncertainty going on, it's tough to get constructive longer dated names until this kind of resolves itself. So next week, obviously, holiday shortened week next week. So we do have the Memorial Day weekend. So markets will be closed on Monday. Next week there are earnings, right? So you have Nvidia. I think Nvidia is Wednesday. You have Dell. You have Ulta. Zscaler. I'm trying to think. Is it Zscaler? Uh, ESTC, Elastic. There's a lot of names. Not a lot of names, but some names of importance. I think Costco reports. So uh, definitely the big bellwether, the one everybody's watching is Nvidia. And it's funny, I was looking this week. It's like it's above its DeepSeek levels, right? So pre-DeepSeek levels. So we had that whole situation with DeepSeek at the end of January, and that was it. Nvidia was done, and then turns out it was just a blip. And that's how some of these dips have been over the years. So I don't, it's not a name I'll trade, but hopefully at least in line, talk positively around the AI space. Obviously, also expectations will be high, but if they can at least alleviate some concerns next week, maybe the market find some footing. Uh, you look at a chart on the SPY, and it's like you almost wish that we filled the gap down there at 570 on the SPY, right? Because so that was the pre China U.S. agreement. So that was the Friday before. I think it was 569, 570. Today would have been the ideal session that, hey, we opened at 575. Maybe we could have pushed down to 570, filled that gap, and then reversed. But we didn't get that. At least we're holding a 200-day moving average. So pending any crazy shenanigans over the weekend, maybe there's some positive developments, and markets can find some footing and start to head back up. At least, a lot of talk over the last couple of days too. The huge move from the April lows. If anything, at least it's given a little uh, at least ease some of the conversation around the markets being way overbought, right? So that kind of brought it in. And also, it's like nobody's talking about the yields again. So maybe, hopefully, that puts that to rest. All right, now just quick on individual names. And today was like one of those premium days that if you tried to do some lottos, even stocks going in the right direction, unless you timed it perfectly, and even if it was perfectly, the reward for that risk wasn't there. So, well, first just GameStop. GameStop back-to-back sessions. Today it's up 5% after yesterday's 10% rally over key resistance areas. And you start looking at the start of the year. I think it was 34.20 was its 50, well, not 52 week, but it's 2025 high. And then you start looking at 52-week highs. It's surprising because obviously Bitcoin was hitting highs Wednesday and hitting highs yesterday, and you're like, why hasn't this ran beforehand? And I don't know if it's just a culmination of consolidation, right? Sometimes with all those sayings, right? Longer and uh, the longer the base, the higher in space. So the longer the consolidation, the higher this is going to go. I hope that's the case here. In lieu of trying to add some more strikes, I'll continue to hold my June 50s. Those are up 50%. You start looking at the premiums. I was looking, October's and the July's, just insane moves being priced into the stock. 30% moves for the July's, 40% plus. Actually, I have to pull it up into October. And then you start looking at the strikes in July, the $100 calls, right? The premiums are, so I don't know if this is a name that's going to double, triple. And you have to remember back when post GME monster squeeze, it had a 4-for-1 split. So technically, and not that you look at the stock price relative, but you look at the market capitalization, but it was technically speaking, it's $120 stock. Well, there's got to be some kind of update at some point with Ryan Cohen. And again, I keep saying I think the offering side. So just keep your cash as a passive income instrument and just continue to do positive EPS while doing offerings at favorable terms and to buy Bitcoin and whatever else they want to do. I think that's the best outcome. If they announce that, I think it trades in the 40s and just keeps going. So all right, that's GameStop. Reddit, disappointing, right? I was watching. I'm like, wow, if this breaks 100, I think it has a move to do a slingshot up to 105, 106, if not higher. Nibbled some inexpensive, cheap. I was actually trying to 104s. I had them at 13 cents, no fill. Went up to the 105s. I figured if it gets to 102 plus, those will be a double. Sure enough, it gets to 102 plus, but it waits all the way to the afternoon after 1 o'clock. So another one of those names. You look, no strikes on Reddit are in the green. No strikes on Reddit are in the green except on the weekly strikes, except if you have the 99 calls, right? So and even that, those are up 7%. So just tough all day. It's been like that. Even if you added strikes, it's very hard to make money. And the stock was up, nearly 4% earlier. AMD is another example. AMD is up. I was watching that for a bounce. It's 107 in the morning, and that's bounced. And all the strikes are in the red today. So even if you timed it at the bottom, you're not making money because the implied volatility, the move was priced in the morning, and then it bounced, but not enough to make up for the risk. So, it's one of those days like you see some names that have bounced, but it's probably best you sat on your hands because pending some of these other names that, it's just, yeah, just a screw every market maker. And then, you worry that maybe there'll be an end of day, and POTUS was on signing his nuclear deal, which, hey, I'm all about energy, right? I mean, especially in nuclear, I wouldn't say it's clean, but it's a heck of a lot cleaner than coal. But there's all these regulations in place on nuclear for the protection of people, right? 3 Mile Island, all these things, accidents that have happened. So we're far removed from that. We've learned, you hope we learn from mistakes that cause those those incidents and what have you. But geez, you just hope they don't. This is not setting the stage for something like that to happen. But I mean, it needs to happen because if the U.S. doesn't do it, China's doing it, and if the energy is not there, at some point it's going to reach the scale that we can't scale out because we don't have the resources to do it, right? So he was signing that. So he's on there talking, and they're starting to try to ask questions around the tariffs and stuff, and he's like, "No, let's just talk about nuclear first." I'm like, "Oh, please, thank you. Let's not go down that road again where we have some crazy moves on today." And he did talk a little bit about the tariffs. We'll see how these play out. But anyways, that's kind of how things have been today. Thankfully, I'm not holding too many crazy positions, and I'll continue to keep things small. I'm still have a TripAdvisor calls, and thankfully locked most of my Junes in, but that one's kind of been fiddling around. Then it found weakness middle of the week, all the way down to 1360 today, and then a bounce. I still like that one. At some point, I'll look to add some more strikes. I still have some Travelzoo as well. That one, just muddling around. I don't know if some of the reason it spiked after earnings, people thought maybe it was doubling its revenues for next quarter as opposed to just growing year over year. So I'll continue to hold those. VKTX is one of those set it and forget it names. I'm not going to add any more strikes. They'll have data at the end of July into August. Uh, Not only that, pending M&A. So some people disagree, think there's going to be no M&A in GLP-1 space. I beg to differ. And it's funny, if you look over the years, there's been every year, I wouldn't say every year, but most years there's a lot of M&A, some news, some big buyouts, right? And it just seemed like this year has been, it's like the year of like no M&A so far. So I don't know if that's just pent up, and we had some of it last year too. It's just, is it worries about the tariffs, so knock on wood. I used to think there was M&A Monday. It used to be every Monday there'd be some kind of M&A, there'd be news, there'd be rumors over on Friday. The name would spike, and they'd be like, okay, and then Monday the news would come out. So it's just, hopefully we get back to that environment. That's a fun environment to be in. That's it. I'm trying to think. Dell reports next week. Another name. You start looking at the chart, and I'm like, wow, it looks like a bull flag setting up. It's been churning here around 111. I would love to play Dell, but I'll probably just revisit maybe towards next week. We'll see how that plays out. And that's it, folks. Well, have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day weekend. I'll be back rock and roll.